Welcome, everybody. It's time to grab your board and catch a wave as we ride the sales pipeline with your host, Matt Hines. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Paul. How we doing?
I'm doing good today. It's sunny today in Southern California. The rains have passed, the sun has come out, and life looks good again.
I'm glad things are back to normal. I'm glad you're not worried about having to step outside and melt into the pavement.
Really?
It's not good. Well, I'll tell you, it's we're here the last episode of Sales Pipeline Radio for January. I was on a call right before we head in the studio here, and someone started the call with saying Happy New Year, and I'm like, it's getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah,
and,
really.
My criteria has always been if I haven't talked to you yet, and or it's before the Super Bowl, I think Happy New Year is still okay to say. I think we can still use that moving forward. But we'll appreciate everyone joining us here today. As usual, we are doing Sales Pipeline Radio live every Thursday at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. For those of you listening on demand on the podcast version, available through iTunes and Google Play, thanks very much for joining us. Every week we are featuring leaders in the sales and marketing world, thought leaders, authors, speakers, and as much as we can, doing people that are doing the hard work, that are building the products and selling the products and marketing the products that we're using and buying on a daily basis to learn what's working in terms of building and managing and closing sales pipelines. And today we got a very, very special treat. Very excited to have someone who is a celebrity of the B2B marketing world, Paul. Like oftentimes there's people that are impressive and important, but not a household name in B2B sales and marketing. And today's, I'm probably embarrassing him already, but today's guest is the co-founder of Marketo and is the founder of Engagio, the next generation of marketing and sales tools. Very excited to have Jon Miller with us here today. Jon, thanks again so much for joining us.
How's it going, Matt? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks again. I hopefully didn't build you up too much, but I think. But honestly, you think about where you've been, right? You were instrumental in the growth of Epiphany back in the day, which when it launched, it was a bit ahead of its time. Marketo is when Phil and the team launched Marketo. It was also something that people didn't really understand, and it is become not only the category has become table stakes in the industry, but Marketo has become the leader in that space. And now what you're doing with Engagio and really sort of building from the ground up a new platform that is account focused versus lead and contact focused is pretty interesting. How do you think about? I'm curious how you think about your career. Has this been intentional? Is this serendipitous? Are you just lucky? Is it a mix of that? How do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I first got to say, definitely not a household name. At least, as I tell my wife, I'm sort of moderately famous in very small circles who go to certain trade shows. But that's about it. I think my whole career has been in marketing technology. And this is actually my fourth marketing technology company. Not far out of undergrad, I ended up at a company called Exchange Partners that spun out marketing technology called Exchange. That was the leading marketing technology of the mid-90s. From there, I went to business school, and after business school, as you said, I was at Epiphany, the leading marketing technology of the next generation during the internet bubble. When Phil and I left Epiphany, that's when we started Marketo, which is probably the leading marketing technology of the last 10 years. And so, yeah, absolutely, Engagio is sort of the obvious next step. And, I fully hope and intend that Engagio is the, leading marketing and sales technology of the next 10 years. The common theme throughout all of this is I've been pursuing a dream or the vision of the one-to-one future. That the book, The One-to-One Future, came out in 1993, Don Peppers and Martha Rogers. And it described, a world where we're able to deliver the same personalization and relevance that, people did at the corner store in the 1800s, but deliver that level of personalization at scale using data and analytics and new techniques. That's inspired me. That's been the theme through all of these companies. And I think with each generation, we're getting closer and closer to that vision.
So you mentioned sort of these small circles of people that see each other at conferences where you're semi-famous, and one of those circles is for sure the sort of account-based marketing circle that is certainly growing and been around at least for the last couple of years. When did you see the wave of account-based coming? I think Oh, you we can argue about your fame, but I mean, you do seem to see some trends before a lot of other people see them. When did you start to see that the lead-based marketing was not going to be sufficient? And at what point did you start to think that account-based was a better direction for marketers and salespeople to better work together?
Sure. If I really go the earliest possible time, 2012, we're at Marketo. It's the year before the IPO. And we're looking to scale as fast as possible. And my CFO comes to me and says, John, like, you can have more budget, to grow faster, but we want even more pipeline. How can you get more pipeline? And the problem was we got 80% of our pipeline through inbound channels, through content and through other kind of what I call net fishing tactics. And as doubling the amount of blog posts isn't going to double the number of leads you generate. And so we had to find new techniques. We had, kind of ultimately and start to build an outbound engine. And that's where I started using this analogy of it's not fishing with net, it's fishing with spears, where you have named accounts and, that you need to go after them. So, I started thinking about outbound back then, but the problem is then fast forward a few years, at least at Marketo, the word account-based marketing was all mergled up with the concept of web personalization and account-based advertising, because that's what tools like Demand-Based did, and that's what tools like Inside Era did, which is the product that Marketo acquired. So I was sort of a big believer in spear fishing, but I kind of was a naysayer on the word account-based marketing because I didn't think that was strategic. And it was actually in late 2014 when I was having lunch with Maria Pergolino, who she runs marketing over at Aptus. I was thinking about, starting my next business, and Maria said, you should do a platform for account-based marketing because, I'm trying to do X, and what she described was spearfishing. She said, I'm trying to do this, and I just can't do it. It's too hard to do it with just Marketo. And then sort of that was the genesis of me seeing that there's an opportunity for a new kind of platform, a new kind of marketing automation platform that had account centricity at its core. So Maria, those two things together.
Yeah, and Maria, if you're listening, one of two things: either you don't have enough stock in Engagio, given that you're basically you were the impetus to create it, or Maria, this is all your fault. And I think a lot of people try to do ABM are still struggling with that, John, too. I mean, they're trying to figure out what does it mean and how do they execute on it. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people describe account-based marketing as simply, well, let's choose the companies we want to market to and just market to them. And it's way more complicated than that. I think, CEB talks about the number of people inside buying organizations, and they talk about this buying committee of, on average, 6.8 people now. To me, like that's the rub, and that's where tools like Engagio really help. It's not just targeting the right company, but it's coordinating communication and consensus building among the right people within those companies. Did I get that right?
Well said. I mean, I like to talk about team selling, right? In sort of the broadest sense of the word. Too much marketing and too much prospecting today, I think, is sort of one person to one person. Right? Whether it's one SDR calling one person at the company or one marketer sending an email to one person at the company. And then what happens is you'll end up sending one email to 8 different people at the company, but you're basically sending all 8 people the same email. Right? And that's not really being account-centric. Team selling is, first of all, recognizing that there are multiple people at the target account, 6.8 as you just said, and they have different needs and different business issues and different things that are driving them. But what's good is you also have multiple people at your account, right? You're not one lone marketer or one lone sales development rep. You got marketing and sales development, and you have the account executives. You have your own executives. I guarantee you an email from your CEO to their CEO will get a way better response rate than an email from your SDR to their CEO. And so, yeah, it's about orchestrating all those interactions between your team and their team so that you can move the ball forward.
Talking today on Sales Pipeline Radio with Jon Miller, the co-founder of Marketo and the founder of Engagio, which has become the leading platform for account-based marketing. You can find it at engagio.com, engagio.com. And, you're talking as much as you describe how sort of account-based really works. You're talking as much about sales as you are about marketing. And it's one of my base concerns really about ABM is that it's really it's centered around marketing. I've heard some people say account-based everything, and that feels too broad. I really like the way Trish Bertuzzi at the Bridge Group describes it. She calls it account-based revenue. But no matter what you call it, I think, what you're describing really is fundamentally a far more coordinated, integrated effort, not just between sales and marketing, but coordinating the entire internal company, the entire selling company to deploy the right right conversations at the right time from the right people to the right people to move those deals forward better.
Yeah, it's, sales and marketing alignment has been sort of, this thing that people paid lip service to for years. And the reality is, as much as at Marketo, we talked about sales and marketing alignment, I think the product we built made it harder. Because we were this lead-centric system that, was marketing hanging out over there and sales you hang out over there. What I'm trying to do with Engagio really is, to let those teams work together well, and that's what everybody wants. It's just been really, really hard.
So how's it feel to be back in the weeds? I mean, I think, you've been an operational marketer for a long time. Even as, Marketo grew, I mean, you were really leading an awful lot of the marketing efforts and strategy there. But, once it goes public, it becomes a very different company. You go back to starting something from scratch and scrapping things together and hiring people and looking for office space. What's that's like? Is that something you enjoy? Are you looking forward to the next stage?
Oh, no, I love it. You've probably heard about people talk about Dunbar's number, the sort of who does research that says, as companies get above 150 employees, it becomes impossible for everybody to know everybody and coordination becomes hard. Mm-hmm. And you start spending a lot more time of your time and energy coordinating instead of doing.
Yeah.
Well, I love this small stage because I'm doing everything I can to grow out of the small and get big.
Well, I got a lot more I want to ask you about ABM, but before we head into commercial here, what are some of the things that you've, I guess, learned over the years? As a business leader and now as a founder, without giving away secret sauce, what are some either mistakes or lessons that you learned from past companies that you're applying now at Engagio?
Yeah, well, Marketo was a pretty awesome company. We had a great product. We hired great people, but something that Phil and I never spent enough time on was talking about the culture that we wanted to have and the kind of company we wanted to have, right? We talked about product. We didn't talk about the company. And so that's the biggest lesson I've taken forward into Engagio is the biggest area I spend my time on is, really building the company. How do we communicate? How do we talk to each other? How do we work together? Matt, you recommended a product called Tiny Pulse to us that we absolutely love, just as a way to really understand what's happening at the company and ensure communication. So that's the area where we're really focusing. Where I'm focusing is the company building, not just the product building.
No, it's great to hear, and I can tell you, I don't know if you get this feedback, but knowing a lot of people that work at Engagio now, they talk a lot about that. They talk about how much you talk about it. They talk about how much of a focus it is at the company, and how important they find that focus as well. Not only is a forcing function, as a motivating function. It's definitely coming through, and I couldn't agree more. We got to take a quick break, pay some bills. We'll be back in a couple minutes. We got a lot more with Jon Miller, who's the founder of Engagio. I want to talk more about culture, but talk about culture as it relates to making shifts to things like account-based marketing and better coordinating sales and marketing, and what ABM means for the rest of the marketing work we're doing. We'll be back in just a couple seconds. This has been Sales Pipeline Radio.
In a world where the speed of innovation and change in B2B marketing has never been greater, the only thing bigger is the need for clarity, for a blueprint, for a guide to what's really working. And how about a way to apply it specifically today to increase sales pipeline growth, velocity, and most of all, conversion? That's what you'll find in the Modern Marketer's Field Guide. And amazingly, you can download it for free. HeinzMarketing.com, just like it sounds, HeinzMarketing. It encompasses the entire sales and marketing cycle, but in quick bursts with lots of specific, actionable ideas, strategies, tactics you can put to work right away, like today. The loaded table of contents helps you narrow in and tackle a problem. And it's something you can come back to over and over again as a reference guide. Why not download your free copy of the Modern Marketer's Field Guide? It's free. HeinzMarketing.com, just like it sounds. HEINZ, marketing.com. All right, let's pick it back up with Matt and his guest.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us on Sales Pipeline Radio. If you like what you're hearing from Jon, you want to listen again, pick up some more tips, or share this with other people in your office, you can definitely do it via the podcast feed at iTunes and Google Play. If you want any of our past episodes on demand, whenever you want it, middle of the night, in the morning, during a run, whatever you want, you can get them at salespipelineradio.com anytime. Jon's will be up there in a couple of days, and every one of our past episodes up there right now. Speaking of episodes, coming up the next couple weeks, next week, the first episode of February, we're going to feature David Premer. I'm probably pronouncing his last name right, but he is the Vice President of Sales at Influitive. We're going to be talking about the sales side of the complex sale, how to manage that, and how to work with marketing in a coordinated way. We'll definitely be covering some ABM issues there as well. Week after that, we've got Ron Brock, who is the author of the book Game Breaker. It is full of great advice on the qualities of superior salespeople, how to acquire them, how to build them, how to train them, and scale them in your business. We want to continue here today with Jon Miller, who is the co-founder of Marketo, who is the self-described semi-famous in very small circles of people. At least that's how he describes it to his wife. Beth, every once in a while, my wife, I'll show her somewhere I got published, and she say, "Yeah, you're such a big deal. Go take out the trash." Right? So anything you do to keep us humble, it works for me. But I want to talk a little more about culture. You talked about how important that is for you as you build Engagio, and as you sort of set a foundation and create a precedent for the kind of business Engagio is going to be. Let's talk about culture from the standpoint of making ABM, account-based marketing, or account-based revenue work internally. How do you encourage people to make the shift? I mean, in many companies, especially larger companies, you've got animosity between sales and marketing. You've got a marketing team that may have historically acted like the arts and crafts department. And so getting people to orient around the account, getting people to drive better integration with the sales organization isn't always easy. And I'm sure that in your sales process, you face some of that as well. What are you doing to help encourage people, or what do you recommend people do to make the right internal moves to be more successful with something like Engagio and ABM?
The answer to that depends a lot on if you're talking to the marketing team or you're talking to the sales or sales development team. Mm-hmm. Because I think they approach it differently. If you're talking to the marketing team, I think the reality is they have the easiest time kind of pivoting here, because they want to do the right thing for the sales team. And usually, if marketing does it right, instead of saying, "Hey, we have leads, why aren't you following up on our leads?" To pivot the conversation with sales and say, "We understand you want to go after accounts. Let's help me understand who those accounts, and let's talk about how we're going to help you go after them." Sales usually really actually enjoys that conversation.
Right.
The mistake marketers make will be is, "Hey, let me know what accounts you want to go after, and then tell me what you want me to do." Right? Because sales doesn't know what marketing can do. If you kind of leave it so open-ended, they're going to say, "Well, can you put together a dinner?" Right. Or something, because that's all they know. Right. So you got to come to them like, "Here's things we can do. Here's how we can help. We can do this research for you. We can customize that," and so on. Anyway, so the point is, it's a little easier from the marketing side to kind of embrace being account-centric.
So here's the other thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well, so I think, the bigger challenge I think I'm seeing is more on the sales and sales development side. Too often, I mean, and the challenge really is that sales development as a function, I think, still is living in a world where they're all about measuring activity. How many calls did you make? How many dials did you make? You're not getting enough, connect. Let me see your email template. And it's a very tactical, volume-based thing. I think really embracing a world of account-based everything is a world where sales development actually needs to step up and be a little bit more strategic. Spend a little more time thinking about what's going to be a message that will actually connect with an executive at this target account. Bringing them business insight. That's harder. And, so my point is that it's a bigger change, I think, for the sales development team usually, because less volume, more research, and all that kind of thing. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is, so our strategy for that a little bit is, to Trojan horse. If we start just by giving them a solution that just lets them, do what they want to do, but better and faster and easier, then our foot's in the door, and then we can all right, hey, as long as you're sending that out, what if you spend a little more time customizing that email to make it better? Oh, okay, that seems like a good idea. And you can kind of, smooth it in that way.
No, good insights, and I love that you're covering a lot of different areas. I mean, look, this isn't always the easiest path to navigate. And these aren't things that you're going to change just by sitting people down and walking them through it. And I've found that even within marketing's own organization, there can be friction here. And you've got people that their jobs historically have been very lead driven, getting more volume up and to the right. You change that, you change what you're measuring, and some people might start to worry about their job. I've literally heard some digital marketing people say, well, that's all fine and good, but I'm not willing to increase my cost per lead. Well, the cost per Facebook registration may not really be the metric that matters. So do you see that? Do you see people, fighting or sort of, trying to create culture change within their own marketing organization as well?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, so, and to put it another way, that's the biggest mistake I think people make. Right, is they embark on some sort of account-based journey without changing how their organization is going to be measuring them. Let's say you're in marketing and you're going to start doing account-based marketing. If everyone is just measuring you on how many leads you generated, you're going to run into a buzzsaw. By definition, the quality goes up as the quantity goes down.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how the ABM fits into the broader marketing mix. I mean, I assume this isn't all or nothing. I mean, I feel like every time there's a shiny new object in marketing, we all gravitate towards it and we think it might be the silver bullet. 15 years ago it was banner ads. 4 years ago it was social selling. Last year it was account-based marketing. But I think what people realize once they get past sort of the newness of it is this really is something that it may shift part of your approach, but it doesn't replace everything else you're doing in marketing. So, curious, how do you see ABM integrating with other marketing priorities moving forward?
Really good question, right? I think ultimately, what marketers are starting to realize is that we're not in a one-size-fits-all world. And to explain that, we sort of always understood that B2B looks different from B2C, right? And B2C marketers, well, they can do ads. They do display ads and TV ads and broad brand building things, and that's how you drive marketing if you're selling, sugar soda, right? And we sort of get that B2B is different, but partly because Marketo and the other demand generation vendors, I think we spent the last 10 years thinking that B2B was monolithic. It was the way you do B2B is you generate leads and then you nurture them and then you score them and then you move on down the road. And we almost, it was almost this perception that it's all net fishing. And I think what we're starting to realize is no, there's nuances and there's another way you can actually think about going to market that's more appropriate when you go after big fish. And you have this whole kind of third style, if you will. Right. So you might have your consumer style, you might have your net fishing style, and now you have your spear fishing style. And they all have a place depending on your kind of business, if you will. So that's why I'm very bullish that account-based marketing and just account-based everything is not a fad. It's not just oh, hey, content marketing was the hottest thing or predictive marketing was the hottest thing. I think that account-based everything is a more fundamental view on go-to-market that is appropriate for a set of businesses.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, so your point about, not, finding a one-size-fits-all, I think even within ABM that's true. I mean, someone at a conference a couple months ago asked me, what qualifies as someone that's ABM worthy? What makes an account someone you can do ABM with? And my answer was a couplefold. I said, one, if there's more than one person making the decision internally, it's a candidate for ABM. The minimal tech stack for ABM, with all due respect to Engagio, it really is just a telephone, right? I mean, just, having different messages that you can deliver to people allows you to do an account orientation to marketing. Almost impossible to scale that if you really want to build a business and sort of build your own pipeline with ABM, which is why tools like Engagio are important. But then the way you would approach that is different. The way you would sell to an enterprise company versus an SMB company, doing an account orientation, building consensus inside the company, it's different. But you have to understand the economics of the sale and what's important from an acquisition cost standpoint as well, and adjust how you're executing appropriately.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Cool. All right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, as usually happens about 5 minutes at the top of the hour. But appreciate everyone joining us today. Really appreciate Jon Miller for joining us today, sharing some great insights on account-based. And Jon, again, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your insights.
Great to talk to you as always.
All right. If you want to hear more from Jon, you can certainly check him out online. He is a prolific blogger, tweeter. You can find him at Jon Miller, Jon Miller. Definitely encourage you to check out Engagio, his great new company, doing some amazing things. They publish some great content as well at engagio.com. We will have links to all of that as well as a replay of this episode on salespipelineradio.com. You can catch it at the podcast. And look forward to catching you live again next week. It's going to be 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific as usual every Thursday. And look forward to it as we start February and get further into the year. For my great producer, Paul, our guests, all our listeners, this is Matt Hines. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Sales Pipeline Radio, the only place that looks at how to build a sales pipeline and sustain it over time. Matt Hines from Hines Marketing.